Ever feel like you're just kind of weathering life, maybe battling problems, feeling a low hum of resentment? Like, I don't know, you've been dealt a hand of bad breaks.
Yeah, or perhaps confidence feels like a foreign concept, leaving you feeling overwhelmed or just plain stuck.
It's incredibly common, that sensation of being worn down by the sheer weight of everyday
A
existence.
feeling of not quite measuring up, maybe, of inherent inadequacy.
Exactly. And what if, according to the source material we're diving into today, that feeling wasn't the only option? What if there was actually like a specific approach?
A spirit and a method, as the source puts it.
Yeah, to navigate those challenges or even, as it says, influence those breaks.
That's precisely the premise of the material we're exploring today.
Okay, so this deep dive is based on excerpts from Norman Vincent Peale's influential book, The Power of Positive Thinking.
Right, and our mission really is to pull out the core techniques and key insights he presents.
Distilled from what he describes as practical procedures based on actual demonstrated human experience, not just theory.
Exactly. The book aims to offer a kind of system for moving beyond those feelings of defeat and inadequacy toward a life with more joy and satisfaction.
So we'll be unpacking the foundational ideas, the absolute necessity of believing in yourself, the huge impact of your mental attitude.
The power the source finds in faith and prayer, practical ways suggested to tackle worry and unhappiness.
Boost your energy, connect more effectively with others.
And how the book suggests you can draw upon what it calls a higher power to potentially transform your life and achieve what you're aiming for.
It sounds like a deep look into how this framework suggests an internal shift can fundamentally alter your experience of the external world.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. The source starts right away by framing the problem most people face.
Yes, it opens with this assertion that a vast number of people are simply, well, defeated by life's everyday struggles.
Defeated. How so?
They're described as wrestling,
Yeah.
sometimes even complaining, with resentment, those perceived bad breaks, and a constant draining sense of inadequacy.
But here's the powerful counterpoint the source immediately makes. This state of defeat isn't presented as inevitable.
Exactly. It argues that while challenges are real, there is a spirit and method by which we can control and even determine those breaks.
So the message is clear. You are only defeated if you choose to allow it.
Pretty much. And a major culprit identified behind this feeling of being defeated is the inferiority complex.
Right, it's called a malady.
Yeah, something that actively holds people back and causes significant unhappiness. But crucially, the source insists it's not permanent. It can be overcome.
There's a striking anecdote right at the beginning that brings this to life. A businessman, visibly distressed.
Oh yeah, he approaches the author before a major deal. Feels utterly sunk.
Right, he's 40 years old, describes this lifelong, terrible disbelief in himself, a complete lack of confidence that's just tormenting him when he needs it most.
He had heard a speech on positive thinking and, well, desperately wants to know how to acquire faith in himself.
So he's given a two-part approach. One part, it sounds like it's more involved.
It does. The first step is diagnosing the root cause, discovering the why behind these feelings of powerlessness.
Okay.
And the source notes this requires analysis, takes time, might even need professional treatment, like a physician diagnosing a physical ailment.
So acknowledging it might be deep-seated needs more than a quick fix.
Exactly. But the second part is presented as an immediate tool, something to use right now to navigate the current difficulty.
Ah, okay. What was that?
He's given a specific formula to repeat multiple times that night, upon waking and on his way to the crucial meeting.
And the key instruction.
Do it with an attitude of faith.
And the words given are, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me, from Philippians 4.13.
That's the one. Even though the businessman wasn't familiar with the verse, he read it aloud. He was told that following this prescription would help things turn out okay.
And the follow-up story confirms that this simple formula did wonders for him. He was genuinely amazed that a few words from the Bible could do so much.
Right. He did later pursue the deeper analysis into the origins of his inferiority.
The first part of the advice.
Yeah. Which the source says was cleared through scientific counseling and by the application of religious faith. He was taught specific techniques on how to have faith,
Ah, so practical steps.
which the book promises to detail later. And the outcome was described as a transformation to a strong, steady, reasonable confidence. Opportunities started flowing towards him.
Wow. So that leads us right to the absolute foundational principle emphasized in the source. Believe in yourself. Have faith in your abilities.
is presented as totally non-negotiable. Without that humble but realistic self-confidence, the source argues success and happiness are pretty much impossible,
Confidence is the fuel for self-realization and achievement.
while inferiority is the brake. Exactly.
And the book spends a fair bit of time exploring where these inferiority feelings actually come from.
It does, suggesting they often start in childhood or arise from specific life circumstances. Those early experiences can kind of lay down patterns that undermine our confidence for years.
There are several vivid examples, like the young executive who couldn't keep a secret.
Oh, that story is telling. It wasn't malice. It was presented as, like, compensation for feeling inferior due to his background raised poor, no college or fraternity pedigree compared to his peers.
So he used inside information to feel important.
Yeah, basically.
Hmm.
The source says self-knowledge, combined with faith and prayer, helped him tap into his real capabilities.
The author even shares his own struggles, which is interesting.
He's very open about it.
Mm-hmm.
Being painfully thin as a child, feeling pressure as a minister's son to be nice and namby-pamby,
Uh-huh.
and a genuine terror of public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
He credits overcoming these not to complex therapy, but to the simple techniques of faith found in the Bible. Calls them scientific and sound.
And a really relatable example is the feeling of being like a C person compared to a sibling who got all A's in school.
Oh yeah, that comparison can really embed a sense of inadequacy, can't it?
Definitely.
The source challenges this directly, arguing that school grades aren't destiny. Someone who got C's in school might well achieve the real ends in life.
So the point is, these inferiority feelings often stem from these past emotional anchors, things we carry around.
Right. So if the root problem is deep self-doubt, the inferiority complex, what's the source's primary method for tackling it?
Good question. What does it say?
The greatest secret, according to the source, is to basically overwhelm your mind with faith.
Overwhelm it.
Yeah. Specifically, cultivating tremendous faith in God. The source argues this leads to humble yet soundly realistic faith in yourself.
Okay, so how is this kind of dynamic faith developed? What's the process?
The path outlined involves consistent, dedicated prayer, immersing yourself in the Bible, and actively practicing the faith techniques presented. It's not passive.
And the source emphasizes the type of prayer that's effective, not just any prayer.
Yes, it distinguishes between surface skimming, formalistic and perfunctory prayer, and what it calls deep prayers.
Deep prayer.
It quotes a colored woman who said, "For big trouble, you need to pray deep prayers." And another quote from a businessman, Harlow B. Andrews, suggests, "God will rate you according to the size of your prayers," urging big prayers.
Big prayers, deep prayers. There's another phrase used, too, about prayers lacking suction.
Yes. From Roland Hayes' grandfather, prayers ain't got no suction. The advice is to drive your prayers deep to your doubts, fears, inferiorities, praying with suction to pull up powerful faith.
So it's not just passive recitation, it's an active, intense engagement. And the source frames faith itself as something that can be, like, honed, a skill.
Absolutely. Possessing and using faith and accessing the power it releases are presented as skills. Like any skill, they require study and practice for mastery.
And it promises specific steps later.
Yes, the 10 suggestions, specifically for overcoming inferiority patterns, will likely get to those.
Okay, stepping back a bit, beyond just feelings of inadequacy, the source has a really strong perspective on our overall outlook or attitude. There's a very powerful quote mentioned.
Yes. Dr. Carl Menneker, the psychiatrist, is quoted stating a profound truth. Attitudes are more important than facts.
Attitudes are more important than facts. That really sticks with you, doesn't it?
It does. The idea being that the objective facts of a difficult situation are less significant than the attitude you bring to them.
So a negative attitude can sabotage you mentally before you even begin.
Right. While a confident, optimistic outlook can, according to the source, actually change or even overcome the facts themselves.
The example of the businessman using the vacuum cleaner method illustrates this well. Can you remind us of that?
Sure. He describes drawing out the negative attitudes from his pessimistic associates about some proposition, asking probing questions, essentially sucking the dust out of their minds.
Okay.
Then, by subtly suggesting positive ideas, he shifts their attitudes, which in turn changes their perception of the facts. The core insight he shares is, it's the confidence attitude that makes the difference.
So a practical takeaway, if you're feeling defeated, is to actively manage your internal focus. Not just let the negative thoughts run wild.
Yes. The suggestion is to literally sit down and make a list,
Yeah.
not of what's against you, but of the factors for your assets, your strengths. Then visualize and affirm those assets. The source warns that dwelling on perceived negatives empowers them, while focusing on your inner strengths with help can lift you out of defeat.
Makes sense. And linking back to faith, there's a belief the source presents as a sure cure for lack of confidence. What is it?
It's the simple yet profound belief that God is actually with you and helping you.
Simple but profound, yeah.
This is presented as a fundamental teaching, that God will be your companion, stand by you, help you, see you through difficulties.
How does the source suggest you make that belief active and practical, not just an idea?
Through simple daily affirmation. Things like, God is with me, God is helping me, God is guiding me.
Saying it out loud or just thinking it?
Probably both. But the key is spending a few minutes each day visualizing this presence, and then acting as if this truth is guiding you, living it out.
And the source suggests this practice releases a kind of power, an inner strength.
Yes, it stimulates a release of inner power. Making confident thoughts a habit, practiced regularly, cultivates a deep sense of capability.
It echoes those quotes you hear sometimes.
Like Emerson's, "They conquer who believe they can and do the thing you fear and the death of fear is certain," or Stonewall Jackson's, "Never take counsel of your fears."
Right. It really is about actively shaping your internal landscape, isn't it?
Exactly. Filling your mind with thoughts of faith, confidence, security, to push out doubt and fear.
Like that story of the man who underlined Bible verses.
Yeah, the man who overcame insecurity by underlining every passage in the Bible about courage and confidence, memorizing them, cramming his mind full of these powerful thoughts. The source calls this thought conditioning.
Thought conditioning. Okay.
Yeah.
Shifting focus slightly, another major issue the source tackles head on is worry.
Worry. Called a destructive mental habit. Something acquired, but crucially, something you can consciously choose to eliminate.
Because habits and attitudes can be changed.
That's the core belief, and it's presented as a serious drain on energy and well-being.
How serious?
Psychiatrist Dr. Smiley Blanton calls it the great modern plague. Physicians link it to physical ailments, talking about dammed up anxiety.
Damned up anxiety.
Yeah, and the word worry itself comes from an old term meaning to choke, which powerfully describes how it just constricts our vitality and peace of mind.
So what's the core strategy the source suggests for breaking the worry habit? How do you stop choking yourself with worry?
It boils down to a change of mental attitude, learning to operate on a different thought basis.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, definitely. Changing ingrained thinking patterns takes effort. But the source argues it's actually far less taxing than living in constant strain and worry. Cultivating inner peace, it suggests, is actually the easiest way to exist.
And the practical method involves a kind of regular mental cleansing, like decluttering your mind.
Exactly. Practicing emptying the mind, actively releasing fears, hates, insecurities, regrets, guilt feelings.
Just letting them go.
And the source notes that just the act of trying brings relief, like unburdening yourself to a trusted friend.
There's that lovely visual anecdote about this from a ship voyage, right?
Yes. The author suggested people go to the stern of the ship in their imagination, take their worries out of their minds, literally drop them overboard, and visualize them disappearing in the wake.
Did it work?
One man who tried this reported being genuinely amazed by the relief. He made it a daily practice.
But emptying alone isn't the complete solution, is it? You can't just leave a vacuum.
No, that's critical. A mind cannot stay empty. If you just empty it, the old negative thoughts will inevitably creep back in.
So what do you do?
The process requires immediate refilling with creative and healthy thoughts.
It's like putting an occupied sign on the door of your mind to keep the negative thoughts out.
Exactly that analogy. The force shares a prescription from a physician, but it's not a pill. It's Romans 12.2. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Renewing the mind.
Applying this verse, according to the source, leads to a mind full of peace, which then has tangible benefits for health and well-being.
And there are practical, almost ritualistic ways suggested to do this refilling, like using quotes.
Yeah, writing down peaceful or faith-affirming quotations, memorizing them, letting them dissolve into your consciousness. The idea is to lubricate the mind with peace.
Lubricate the mind. Interesting phrase.
And the words of the Bible are highlighted as having significant therapeutic value when used this way.
Yeah, it contrasts sharply with the story of the salesman and his brackish-looking medicine for nerves.
Right. That anecdote really highlights the ineffectiveness of simply trying to manage anxiety externally. The salesman was on edge, drinking this unpleasant stuff, but finding no real peace.
So the contrast is between external fixes and internal power.
Exactly. the power found in faith and spiritual practice for achieving genuine peace. There's another story, too, about praying for a man over the phone who felt a strange sense of quietness and healing just by being open to receiving God's gift of peace.
Wow. Moving from worry, the source also addresses unhappiness, and it has a rather strong take on its origin for many people.
It does. It argues that many people aren't just victims of circumstances, but actively manufacture their own unhappiness.
Manufacture it. How?
The example of the lawyer describing his constantly complaining wife illustrates this. She could find fault with anything, anywhere.
Okay, so how does this internal manufacturing happen, according to the source?
Through unhappy thoughts, basically.
Yeah.
Negative attitudes, dwelling on what others have, focusing on lack, and consciously allowing resentment, ill will, hate, fear, and worry to saturate one's mind.
Those sound like the ingredients for misery, all right.
They are, according to the source, self-created misery.
So the source's formula for happiness is directly related to this manufacturing process, like shutting down the factory.
Exactly. Dismantling that internal factory. It's a fundamental change in mental attitude and thought basis, consciously choosing to build happiness instead of misery.
The simple story from the Pullman train car really captures the essence of this.
Oh yeah, the man radiating cheerfulness walks into the lounge car. Someone asks him why he's so happy.
And his reply.
Simple. I make it a habit to be happy. It suggests happiness isn't just a random feeling, but something cultivated through conscious choice and daily practice.
Making it a habit, okay? And the source provides specific principles for building this habit of happiness.
It does. Practicing love is one core principle. It quotes Tolstoy, where love is, God is, and adds that where God and love are, happiness naturally resides. Presented not just as an ideal, but a practical way of being.
And there's Apsey Mattern's business card formula for happiness. That sounds concise.
It is, basically. Keep your heart free from hate, your mind from worry. Live simply, expect little, give much. Fill your life with love, scatter sunshine, forget yourself, think of others, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
And the kicker.
Try this for a week. But the source emphasizes merely knowing these principles isn't enough. Practicing them daily is what matters.
Right. But applying these principles effectively seems to require more than just willpower, according to the source, like something deeper.
Yes, it needs a dynamic quality of mind and spiritual power. The source suggests that when someone undergoes a genuine inner experience of spiritual change, applying these happiness-producing ideas becomes remarkably easy.
So like they're inoculated with happiness.
That's the phrase used, yeah. People who are truly happy often seem inoculated with happiness through such an experience.
The anecdote about the party where people were spiritually alive seems to illustrate this phenomenon. No alcohol, right?
Right, just coffee and juice. Yet the people were joyous, full of vitality. They talked openly and naturally about their faith, how revitalized spiritual power had transformed their lives.
And the author saw something.
He described seeing a light on their faces, feeling it was derived from God, and that their happiness came from this deep internal source, not from external things.
So happiness is seen as a result of actively managing your thoughts and inviting a higher power in.
Precisely. Recognizing your thoughts determine your emotional state and consciously driving off depressing ones. The story of the pessimistic businessman, given the Thought Conditioner booklet, is a practical example.
The one with 40 positive thoughts.
Yeah. He was told to focus on one thought daily for 40 days. Memorize it, visualize its influence, a systematic approach.
And the result? Did it work for him?
He called back after 3 weeks, genuinely exclaiming how much it worked. He'd snapped out of it, become happy by systematically inserting healthy thoughts.
What was his main hurdle?
According to the source, his main initial barrier was the sheer effort required, wanting and choosing to change, making that conscious decision.
Interesting. Okay, beyond emotional states like worry and happiness, the source also addresses something very tangible: physical energy and vitality.
Right. It introduces the idea that energy isn't just depleted by physical work, but significantly by a high-pressure, abnormal emotional pace of life.
Especially through what?
Particularly through fuming and fretting. Those constant low-grade or high-grade stresses.
And there's a clear link drawn between spiritual well-being and physical health.
A strong connection. The source asserts that we're increasingly recognizing the close relationship between religion and health, noting that physical state is tied to emotional state, which in turn is governed by thought patterns.
And it points to the Bible.
Yeah, emphasizing abundant life, quoting John 10:9, life and vitality.
So, how does one stop the energy drain caused by fuming and fretting? What are the suggestions?
The core suggestions involve consciously reducing your pace, both physical and emotional, and actively cultivating a calm philosophy of living.
A calm philosophy. There's a memorable anecdote about a physician's unusual advice to an aggressive businessman, something about a cemetery.
Yes. The doctor prescribed 2 hours daily for a walk and a half day each week spent in a cemetery.
Wow. Why the cemetery?
The stark visual of gravestones was intended to provide perspective, reminding the businessman the world wouldn't collapse if everything wasn't done right away quick, and that the burden wasn't solely on his shoulders, gaining perspective.
Perspective through mortality. That's certainly impactful. The source also suggests this cultivation of calmness opens up new internal resources, like tapping into something.
It uses the author's own experience in a hotel room before a speech, feeling pressured. He stopped, read Psalm 121, prayed, focused on peaceful thoughts.
Now, what happened?
He describes gaining a sense of personal mastery and control over his emotions, feeling re-energized and ready.
And physicians are noted as frequently seeing this link between fuming, fretting, and physical issues, and recommending this calm philosophy.
Yes, a citizen was actually referred to a church clinic for this very reason. The source also recounts an agitated visitor who became quiet and felt a healing presence simply by listening to and reflecting on verses like Isaiah 26.3.
That will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee.
That one. And John 14.27, peace I leave with you. Just hearing and absorbing those words brought calm.
This sounds like what the source describes as psychosomatic medicine, but maybe not in the typical sense.
Exactly. It's explicitly not found in drugstores. It's presented as a prescription based on prayer, faith, and dynamic spiritual thinking.
There's a story illustrating this.
The sales manager, whose energy and creativity waned but were restored through spiritual and emotional treatment, described as getting straightened out and attuned to God's pattern.
And another story about a businessman who felt weak and was failing.
Yeah, by reading Psalm 27.1 and 3, the Lord is the strength of my life. In this will I be confident. He had a spiritual experience that shifted his fundamental thought pattern from negative to positive, which then led to a change in his circumstances.
A consistent thread through all these points is the incredible power the source attributes to our thoughts.
It's presented as a fundamental truth. You can think your way to failure and unhappiness, but you can also think your way to success and happiness.
And it quotes Marcus Aurelius.
Yes, stating that the world you inhabit is primarily determined not by external circumstances, but by the thoughts you habitually hold in your mind.
And the mind isn't just a receiver of thoughts. It's seen as containing creative potential, like ideas are in there.
Yes, filled with creative ideas waiting to be released and developed. This release is presented as the key to solving problems and realizing a capacity for achievement far beyond what you might currently believe.
Okay. To facilitate this shift from negative limiting patterns to creative positive ones, the source offers 7 specific practical steps, a kind of program.
That's right, presented as a deliberate program to change your thought patterns. Ready?
Let's hear them.
1. For 24 hours, make a conscious effort to speak hopefully about everything. Just try it. It's about actively breaking the habit of pessimism.
Okay, 24 hours.
2. Extend this practice for a full week. The source suggests you'll notice your definition of realistic, naturally shifting toward the positive as you do this. 3. Actively feed your mind nourishing thoughts. Start in the New Testament, underline every sentence related to faith in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Pay special attention to Mark 11.22-24.
Okay, actively engaging with Scripture. 4.
4. Commit these underlined passages to memory. Allow them to sink deep into your subconscious through what the source calls spiritual osmosis.
Spiritual osmosis.
The idea is this internalizes the message of faith, transforming you into a believer, an expector, an achiever. 5. Form a clear mental picture of yourself succeeding in what you're attempting. Hold on to that image tenaciously. Never visualize yourself failing. The mind, the source argues, tends to work towards completing the picture it holds.
Visualization. Powerful stuff. 6.
6. Pray about everything, but critically test your desires through prayer to ensure they align with God's will. Be honest about it.
Yeah.
And ask specifically for what you want, believing you will receive it.
Testing desires. Okay. And 7.
7. Put your problems into God's hands. Consciously rise above them in your thoughts. Visualize a positive, great result. Keep your mind focused on ideas of prosperity, achievement, attainment. And when a negative thought enters your mind, immediately counter and expel it with a positive affirmation like, God is now giving me victory.
That's a very clear, actionable list. Does the source provide any evidence or test cases for these steps? Did people try this?
It shares the story of a businessman who habitually expected the worst. He agreed to apply these principles for 6 months, keeping a scorecard of his attempts to expect the best in various situations.
A scorecard. What were the results?
He reported an 85% success rate. He concluded it was a scientific way to meet life situations, but stressed that consistent practice was essential. It wasn't magic, it was practice.
Right. And the source offers specific affirmations to help train the mind daily. Things to repeat.
Yes, phrases like, I believe God gives me power to attain what I really want, and repeating, I expect the best, and with God's help will attain the best, at least 10 times daily are suggested practices.
There's also a compelling anecdote about a young man whose school performance dramatically improved. How did that happen?
He went from C's to 90s, not just by studying harder, apparently, but by applying the I don't believe in defeat philosophy and consistently visualizing success. The source presents this as a powerful example of positive thinking directly impacting results.
So, the core message underlying all this is one of immense potential. There is no difficulty you cannot overcome.
That's the fundamental belief the source seeks to build, yes. It shares a powerful, simple formula from a wise Negro man asked how he handles trouble.
What was his formula?
He said you can go around it, under it, over it, or plow right through it. And then he added the crucial phrase, God and I plow right through it.
God and I plow right through it. I like that. And that verse, Philippians 4:13, comes up again as a source of power.
Repeating, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me 5 times daily, is suggested as a way to unleash inner indomitable power.
But changing those deep negative patterns isn't easy, right? The subconscious resists.
Exactly. The source emphasizes that changing deeply ingrained negative thought patterns takes deliberate effort, like talking truthfully to your subconscious, insisting it believe in your capacity with help. By consistently feeding it positive truths, the subconscious will eventually reflect that back to you.
The story of Amos Parrish seems to embody this idea of overcoming significant obstacles and even turning them into assets. What were his challenges?
He faced considerable ones. Sickly health, a stutter, a strong inferiority complex as a boy, big hurdles.
But he succeeded.
After a spiritual experience and developing faith, he became a highly successful speaker and businessman. The source highlights that he consciously used his perceived weaknesses and obstacles as springboards for growth and success.
Using obstacles as assets.
Okay.
And when applying this power to difficulties, the source advises tackling things strategically, not all at once.
Right. Not trying to conquer a whole mountain range of problems at once, but focusing on one specific challenge at a time, echoing the biblical phrase, ye shall say to this mountain.
Focus on one mountain.
And when you want something specific, first, check if it's something you should want through sincere prayer. Test it honestly. Then, ask God for it explicitly. Cultivate belief that you are receiving it. And finally, commit your full effort. Put your whole self into the endeavor.
Okay, that makes sense. The source also turns its attention to our relationships with others, acknowledging that fundamental human desire captured by William James to be appreciated.
Yes, that deep-seated longing to be liked. The source is realistic, though. It notes you won't gain everyone's approval.
Referencing the Dr. Fell rhyme, I do not like thee, Dr. Fell.
Exactly. And the Bible's advice to live peaceably, if it be possible. So don't let it devastate you if you're not perfectly popular.
But it emphasizes that failure in this area, feeling unwanted or unneeded, can be psychologically devastating.
Absolutely. Hindering personality development and causing genuine suffering. Gives examples. A retired doctor, a middle-aged woman, a retired founder, a girl with an inferiority complex. All suffering from feeling unwanted.
So it offers practical techniques for cultivating positive, satisfactory relationships, not just superficial popularity.
Right. The first is simple yet profound. Be a comfortable person.
Comfortable. How?
Someone easygoing, natural, genial. Easy to be with. Not stiff, anxious, or easily offended. The example of young people liking a 17-year-old because he is good company, he's a good sport, he is easy to be with, cultivating that naturalness.
Okay, be comfortable. What else?
The next two techniques kind of build on each other. The second is actively building people up, contributing to their feeling of personal worth, boosting their esteem for your ego.
Making them feel good about themselves.
Right. The source notes people are drawn to and like you for makes them feel better about themselves. Conversely, the third technique is actively avoiding deflating other people's egos.
Like the joke spoiler example.
Exactly. The person who diminishes others to feel important themselves. The principle is clear. Elevate others, don't diminish them. Build them up.
The story of Jim Parley serves as a powerful illustration of mastering these principles, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. His genuine knack for remembering names, offering sincere greetings to everyone, from business associates to a colored maid, exemplifies being unegotistical, comfortable, genuinely outgoing.
And those qualities are key.
The source suggests they are key to success in personal interactions.
And a particularly inspiring example is Dr. John W. Hoffman, the author's college president. What did he do?
Dr. Hoffman had this remarkable ability to build students up by consistently expressing belief in them, saying things like, "I believe in you, you have great possibilities."
Just saying it.
Saying it, and even sending letters of approval for small accomplishments. This selfless act of seeing and affirming potential in others earned him their undying devotion.
Wow.
The source presents this as the ultimate way to be liked, genuinely liking others and helping them see their own possibilities, unselfishly.
That's powerful. Shifting gears slightly, the source also returns to the idea of pace and tension. It offers a 3-point program for achieving relaxation and living with more ease. What is it?
It's designed to help you operate on an easy-does-it basis.
Same.
3 points.
Okay, 1.
1. Consciously say, "easy does it" to yourself frequently throughout the day, to prompt a physical and mental slowing down, reducing tension, just the phrase itself.
Okay.
2. Regularly practice draining your mind of negative, unhappy thoughts, resentment, disappointment, frustration, annoyance. Think of it as a mental detox, letting go frequently.
Train the mind. And 3.
3. Practice thinking spiritually.
Hmm.
Consciously turn your mind to God regularly, maybe by lifting up your eyes unto the hills, as the psalm says, to stay connected, grounded, and allow yourself to be refilled with peace.
Dr. Z. Taylor Berkowitz offers a very personal method for relaxing under pressure. How did he do it?
He describes stopping when feeling overwhelmed at his desk, leaning on it, just talking naturally and respectfully to God.
What would he say?
Something like, "Look, Lord, I'm pushing myself too hard. Touch me with your healing peace," acknowledging the pressure and asking for help. Then he'd stand quietly for a moment before resuming his work with what he calls full but easy power.
Full but easy power. And he even found a way to use frustrating situations, like traffic jams, as opportunities for relaxation. That sounds counterintuitive.
Right, he'd shut off his engine, slump in his seat, close his eyes, sometimes even nap, trusting that the eventual chorus of horns would signal movement.
That's amazing.
It's a creative, practical application of finding peace and letting go of tension, even in the midst of external chaos.
Bringing many of these ideas together, the source constantly reinforces the transformative power of belief and expectation. It keeps coming back to that.
Yes, it's reiterated that consciously changing your mental habits from disbelief to belief, from habitually expecting the worst to actively expecting the best, fundamentally expands what is possible in your life.
And William James's quote is central to this point, isn't it?
Absolutely. Our belief at the beginning of a doubtful undertaking is the one thing that ensures the successful outcome.
Belief ensures the outcome.
The source emphasizes that developing this ability to believe is the foundational skill for success. Expecting the best is presented as releasing a powerful magnetic force that draws positive outcomes towards you.
The source does qualify that this doesn't mean you get everything you want instantly or selfishly, right? It's
Yeah.
not just wishful thinking.
Right. When you put your trust in God, the source suggests your desires become guided towards what is good and aligned with a higher purpose. But within that framework, the seemingly impossible can move into the realm of the possible.
And the fundamental method for tapping into this power is rooted in spiritual belief. Faith is key.
Yes, the techniques presented are grounded in faith, belief, positive thinking, trusting God, others, yourself, life itself. Biblical verses are cited constantly as underpinning this principle.
Like Mark 9.23,
If thou canst believe, all things are possible.
Matthew 17.20,
If ye have faith, nothing shall be impossible.
and Matthew 9.29.
According to your faith be it unto you. The principle is clear. Faith is presented as a potent force capable of moving obstacles.
So the stark conclusion from this theme is that thinking or feeling failure is the very act of creating defeat.
But conversely, Combining optimistic visualization with prayer and faith is presented as the pathway to inevitably actualizing achievement. It makes it happen.
The source is filled with compelling stories of people who experienced dramatic transformation by applying these principles. They serve as proof points.
Exactly. Presented as tangible proof of the system's effectiveness. There's the man healed of alcoholism after 25 years.
How?
By drawing on a higher power, finding peace, and transforming hate into love for a minister who had disappointed him. The source holds this up as evidence that this power can help overcome even the most deeply ingrained problems.
And the story of Dick, the businessman who was struggling immensely, broke, sick, isolated.
Yeah, just a mess. Broke, a physical washout, in debt, lacking friends due to drinking, negative, critical, impatient, cocky.
So what changed for him?
By diligently applying the teachings, working on himself day to day, striving to control his impulses, becoming less critical, learning to truly follow the principles, his life changed dramatically.
How do you describe it?
Like being released from a prison, finding life full and wonderful as he learned self-control and a less critical outlook, a total turnaround.
Another account is of a man who was an utterly hopeless alcoholic but had business talent.
Right. After reading A Guide to Confident Living, he achieved sobriety, became dry, and has maintained it, drawing on a higher power despite facing difficult problems. He's described as now emanating a palpable sense of power. You can feel it.
These transformations are linked to cultivating what the source calls a spiritual culture. What does that mean?
It seems to mean a new way of thinking and acting that's nurtured through literature like this book, finding therapeutic value in church worship, and the deliberate, what the source terms scientific, use of prayer.
A scientific use of prayer. Interesting. The story of Maurice and Mary Alice Flint is particularly moving in illustrating this whole process. Can you recap that?
Sure. Maurice was failing, profoundly consumed by fear, resentment, and negativity, just drowning. Reading about mustard seed faith provided a spark of hope.
So he took action.
He felt compelled to drive from Philadelphia to seek help at the Author's Church in New York, despite feeling completely overwhelmed by his complex problems. Money, debt, his future himself. Totally hopeless.
And what was he told?
He was assured that focusing on getting himself straightened out, aligning his attitudes with God's pattern, learning and applying faith techniques was the path to solving his external problems. Fix the inside first.
And did he?
He applied the principles, experienced a spiritual power inwardly, and found that success then became surprisingly easy. The outer results followed the inner change.
So the core message really is about internal transformation leading to external results. It keeps coming back to that.
Exactly. Change your mental habits, learn to believe, expect the best, place your trust in God, believing He's guiding you. When you do this, what once seemed impossible can become possible.
There's a fascinating story about a businessman who felt completely baffled and discouraged, facing a failing business, and actually made God a partner. He called it a miracle.
Yes. He prayed sincerely, laying out his problems, putting everything in God's hands, asking specifically for guidance, just total surrender and asking.
And what happened?
He describes experiencing a sudden, clear surge of insight. His thinking became clear. He saw issues he hadn't seen before, developed a practical plan based on this new clarity, and saved his business.
Wow.
The source uses this to illustrate the practical application of practicing God's presence and believing it. He can impress ideas directly upon your mind. Divine guidance in action.
And the connection between spiritual practice and health comes up again with a story about a woman physician. She was struggling herself.
Yeah, she was suffering from tension, irritability, fears, guilt, a general morbid tension, despite being a doctor.
And reading the source book helped her.
She found it served as a crucial prescription. Faith in God, she felt, acted like an antibiotic against fear and a virus that eliminated guilt. Powerful metaphors.
An antibiotic for fear.
She experienced profound relief, became relaxed, slept well without medication, and then began sharing these principles with her own patients who came to her with similar psychosomatic issues, paying it forward.
So drawing all these threads together, the source emphasizes that these aren't just abstract theories, but simple, workable techniques, things you can actually do.
Yes, presented as practical action items that, when applied consistently, are said to lead to significant transformation. It's a toolkit.
Things like believing deeply in God and yourself, consciously changing your thought patterns from negative to positive.
Using prayer in a specific, focused way, what the source describes as prayerizing, picturizing and actualizing your goals with faith.
Emptying your mind of draining worries and fears, but immediately and deliberately refilling it with positive, healthy thoughts.
Consistently practicing spiritual principles in daily life, making a conscious effort to build others up instead of tearing them down.
Cultivating an attitude of expecting the best. Visualizing success clearly and holding that image.
Putting your biggest problems into God's hands and trusting for guidance. And consciously drawing upon that higher power the Source describes. It's a whole integrated system.
And the promise is that applying these techniques is the path to finding victory, happiness, power, and overcoming difficulties.
It's presented as a comprehensive system for living more effectively and joyfully, built on a foundation of faith and the deliberate cultivation of a positive mental and spiritual attitude.
So that's our deep dive into excerpts from The Power of Positive Thinking, really pulling out the practical methods presented for navigating life's challenges, cultivating happiness, and unlocking inner potential.
Yeah, it's a system focused on shifting your internal state from defeatist thinking to one of belief and expectation, often with the explicit engagement of what the Source refers to as a higher power.
And as we've heard through the anecdotes, the Source is filled with examples of people who are said to have applied these very ideas and experienced remarkable shifts in their lives.
Right. These techniques aren't just presented as abstract concepts, but as skills that can be learned and honed through practice, just like any other skill you might develop.
Which leaves us with a thought to take away, drawn directly from the source material itself. The book suggests that the world you actually live in is determined less by your external conditions and circumstances.
And far more by the thoughts you habitually choose to occupy your mind with.
So, if you consider that, what kind of world are your current habitual thoughts creating for you right now? And what's just one simple thought you could choose to change today to begin shaping a different kind of world for yourself?
A powerful question to sit with, definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Always a pleasure to explore these ideas with you.